The movie starts with airplane voices played in the background with production names displayed. A message then appears stating that the war will not end. This message was given by Dee Werner, who was an 18-year-old that participated in World War II. This movie goes back to 1944 during the Allied campaign across France. At that time, Americans would wear the 82 Airborne patch and a big red 1 patch, something no other unit would wear. A soldier wearing the above-mentioned patches is seen sleeping on the ground in between trees at night, where nightmares of the happenings in the past start to play, which results in him jolting up. Awake, he looks around and finds a silhouette of a person on the tree opposite it. Discreetly, he tries to pick his gun up, and while doing so, he looks at his soldier mate sleeping soundly. When he looks back near the tree, the silhouette lights up a cigarette and smokes. Chris, as we learn his name, is now scared and asks what the person needs, only to be answered by a thrown cigarette. Hearing the man pick his gun up, Chris closes his eyes, not wishing to anticipate or face what is coming next, but finding no reaction, he opens his eyes to see no one. Morning comes by and all the soldiers are seen getting things ready for their day. Chris is the group's commander, and with him, there are a total of 5 soldiers, that is Chris himself, followed by Eugene, Butchie, Kirk, and Tappert. The soldiers are assigned to guard a shadow. Kirk is seen complaining about his itch because of the socks he wore, and asking Butchie, who is another soldier, simultaneously complaining about him not having a flat foot. He starts to share a story of his cousin's kid brother, who is also his cousin, who had a flat foot, and how he did not get into the army, which led to him eliminating himself. Eugene states facts about how the guy from the story is also his cousin and how he keeps lying. Both of them get into an argument, which is stopped by Chris' command, ordering them to start their journey to the outpost that is 30 miles over the hills. While walking towards it, Chris spots a jeep coming their way. Halting his army of 4 soldiers, he informs them the same. All the men get into their respective positions. Soon the moving jeep was ambushed by the soldiers, eliminating all that were sitting inside the vehicle. Eugene lamely complains about how they could have kept the jeep, as they have a long way to walk, but was called out by one of the soldiers. Looking in and around the car, they find that the jeep belongs to Germany's Nazis. While eliminating the Nazi injured soldiers in a heartbeat, they start to look around for maps, coded messages, or anything of that sort that could be used by these soldiers and be implemented to win the war. Tappert removes a golden tooth from one of the soldiers' teeth, while Butchie challenges the major of the Nazi that is alive to a fight. Eugene translates it for the major, thinking he does not understand anything, but he is yelled at by Butchie, who tells him that the major is just pretending to have a language barrier, and that he understands every word coming out of their mouths. While Butchie is fighting with the major, the rest of the soldiers look around to find some clues. There, Chris finds a map that indicates the nearest crossing, that is 2 miles over at Telto. The fight between the two continues, with Butchie being punched continuously in the face despite his defense. In order to end the fight, Chris shoots the major in the head, putting him to eternal sleep instantly, and informs his fellow soldier of the wrong turn they had taken behind, and that they had to walk back again, adding that they do not have much time left. After packing up, they begin their journey. In the evening, while walking, Chris hears the noise of the grass rustling from the woods. They immediately halt and get into position by pointing their gun toward that area and waiting for the people to show up. Staring into that space meticulously, they encounter a group of Jewish refugees walking outside, while the other men stayed behind. Tappert moves toward the group and offers the German's jacket to a woman and her son that he had borrowed from the soldiers before. He also offers the pouch that contains all the golden teeth he had taken off German's mouth and the Nazi badge that could help the group in the future. Walking away, they arrive at a destination with things on fire and people hiding from them at night. Passing by, on their way, Chris informs his army that they are going to guard a shadow for as long as it takes, and that it is a big deal for all of them. Happy with what they learned, the army continued their journey. In the morning, they reached the shadow that they were to guard. This shadow was previously commandeered by Nazis, but was soon taken over by them. While walking towards the entrance, they find one of their soldiers sleeping. Waking him up, the soldier that was sleeping rushed inside the house to inform the major of the relief that just came in. Inside the shadow, they find all the soldiers sleeping in the main room with alarming faces that hope to get out of the place as soon as possible. Finding it peculiar, they ask for the reason, but the soldiers inside were so scared, they cleared out the place hurriedly, only wishing to leave this place at the earliest. When Chris asks for the reason, one of the soldiers tells him that they are behind schedule, as Chris and his army were a day late while trying to act tough. Thinking there is no point in continuing the conversation, the soldiers leave, not even realizing that one of them had left their rucksack behind. Chris, Eugene, and Tappert decide to look around the house while Butchie and Kirk stay back inside the kitchen. In one of the rooms, Eugene finds a piano that he starts to play. Tappert, on the other hand, heads downstairs to the basement where he finds a frame of a family, and while he stares at it, he hears a wooden object falling down. Chris hears mysterious noises from near the window, and Butchie hears a door close while he is walking in the corridor. Unusual happenings start to take place, but the soldiers do not pay any heed. At night, they all gather around the fireplace where they were taking a break when they start to hear footsteps from above. Immediately, they get onto their feet and slowly start to head upstairs to find the source of the footsteps. On reaching upstairs, they all go in different directions. When Kirk and Chris were going to enter a room that has its door closed, The door opened on its own, which startled the duo. Heading inside, they reach near a window where they see a silhouette of a body hanging from above but soon disappears. Later at night, when the men are sharing creepy, cryptic stories about their relatives from war, they hear rhythmic banging sounds from the fireplace that Chris interprets as the Morse code. Eugene transcribes the code as saying, "I have no legs." As soon as the code is transcribed, a squirrel falls inside the fireplace that startles everyone. Not understanding the events and thinking it is best for everyone, Chris orders Tappert to sleep in the attic and the other men on beds but staying within shouting distance. With everyone asleep, Eugene heads downstairs and starts to read the book, which belongs to a German soldier that contains the fate of the family that lived in the shadow before. While reading, he looks up and stares at the picture of the family before the candle extinguishes. He soon lights the candle again, only to see everyone from the frame disappear. When Tappert is in the attic pointing his gun to look outside the shadow, he gets a glimpse of a body hanging with a presence in the room with him. He gets startled and decides to head downstairs to look around but finds no one. Morning comes by and everyone is in the kitchen preparing something for breakfast. Back in the attic, Eugene and Tappert find a drawing on the floor. Walking across it, they move the cupboard across it while passing across the pentagram again, but this time, Eugene's fingers are crushed by the cupboard's door closing and him screaming in pain. Frustrated, he walks away and leaves Tappert in the room alone, where he sees someone hanging from the top of the attic. Through the radio, they learn that the German army is near the shadow, adding that they believe that it is haunted. When they talk about leaving the place, they hear the banging sound again. When Eugene starts to transcribe it, his hand moves on his own to spell out the message, "If you leave, you die." At the same time, they hear the same message through the radio. That night, a German patrol attacked, but as Chris' army saw it coming, they were ready. Even with the number of German soldiers being high, the American soldiers boldly fought back and killed most of their soldiers. Some of the German soldiers are eliminated in a peculiar way by an unforeseen force, like one of them drowning in the bathtub, where no one is pushing his head inside the water, a man lit on fire by no one in particular, and much more. Butchie dives into a grenade and is wounded. The other men rush to get the required first aid for their fellow soldier. That night, Eugene narrates all the happenings of the previous owner, the Hellwigs. They learn that the Hellwigs had been sheltering Jews in their shadow, and when the Germans learned of it, they attacked the family and eliminated them brutally, with the father being burnt alive, the daughter being hanged, and the son being downed in the bathtub, his mother forced to watch on gunpoint. After eliminating them, the Germans had tossed their bodies in a heap. Later that night, Chris entered the bathroom and stood in front of a bathtub full of water. Looking into it, he sees the body of the boy and tells him that he could help them. As soon as he turns, he is thrown inside the water and an unforeseen power is downing him. Waking up, he finds himself in a room full where one of the soldiers tells him of his nightmare. Coming back, Eugene and Chris head downstairs to find more proof related to the Hellwigs family, and when they point their torch towards the frame, the torchlight goes off. Rushing upstairs, Chris is left alone in the basement, where he finds a book with nothing written on it. Eugene creepily stands behind Chris, but the duo rushes upstairs when Kirk calls for them. Upstairs, Butchie is awoken and is chanting the words, "This isn't real, it was us." Before he could say something more to Chris, he passed away. That night, the soldiers decide to leave the place as they are convinced of the shadow being haunted. After an impromptu burial of their fellow soldier, the four leave the place. Walking, they realize that they are repeating the experiences that brought them to the shadow, like ambushing the Germans and eliminating their soldiers, and the encounter with the refugees. After passing through an abandoned hospital van again, they call it a day. While they are sleeping on the ground in the middle of the forest, Tappert feels someone pulling him. He opens his eyes and finds himself in the attic where he is being hanged. Waking up, he realizes it is a nightmare, and he looks around to find the other three sleeping and the word Vetrolek on the ground. Day 2 also results in the same happenings, which convince them that they are in a loop and are cursed. Deciding on giving the family a normal burial, they return back to the shadow. While other men are busy in the burial process, Tappert chants the word Vetrolek, while Eugene tells the group that the word is a Muslim belief that says if you let evil happen, it could come back to haunt you tenfold. While everyone waits for the Hellwigs family at night, Chris feels someone pulling him towards an outhouse where they find the family's remains. While Chris, Eugene, and Kirk were outside, Tappert is inside where he is attacked by Mrs. Hellwigs. After burying the bodies, Eugene reads the book again to find a way to give them a proper burial, but realizes that the text is no longer in German but in Arabic now, and that the Hellwigs were Afghans. He also adds that Mrs. Hellwigs had cursed Vetrolek to men that were just standing by and watching things happen. Not knowing what to do, the men prayed. Inside, Eugene learns that the burial just gave them more power to bring them back from the dead. The men are now attacked by the spirits, while Tappert is seen praying to the pentagram upstairs. When one of the spirits tries to drown Chris, the words of Butchie "this isn't real" play in his mind, and he experiences hallucinations before waking up in a futuristic hospital where he is attended by doctors. His fellow mates are in the room unconscious and mutilated. The doctors inform him that he and his comrades had been experiencing simulated reality due to the post-traumatic stress disorders from the happenings in World War II, and that the doctors were only trying to help him and his fellow soldiers. When Dr. Engel asks Chris whether he remembered his last day in Afghanistan, his memories return. He remembers that he and his fellow soldiers are not a part of World War II. and instead they are soldiers of the present-day American military, adding that his final mission included saving a family known as the Hellwigs that collaborated with America and securely getting them out of there, but before they could do it, they are ambushed by the Islamic State patrol. The 5 soldiers were ready to attack the patrol, but their CIA handler ordered them to hide inside the wall and wait for them to leave. The men reluctantly followed. They witnessed the Hellwig family's slaughter in the manner they witnessed in the simulation. The grieving mother of the family detonated a bomb with her dying and uttered the words Vetrulek. But she died on the spot as he jumped on the bomb. Back in the hospital, the power fluctuates, which confuses the medical staff. Chris realizes that the curse is real and that the Hellwig's family is truly haunting the simulation that the men are experiencing. Not finding another way, Chris pleads to the medical staff to help them return to the simulation wherein they can confront and apologize to the family and lift the curse. He reawakens and finds himself where the experience began, the place where he and his fellow soldiers camped out at night, in the middle of the forest where a figure watches from the shadows, burning a cigarette.